So Kyle, if you could start it off for us in the Eastern Conference, who is your biggest disappointment thus far?
My biggest disappointment so far is Toronto. Toronto right now. So as it stands, their record is 8-12. Now, with them, it's a little bit different this year because they're the only team that has truly been displaced by COVID-19 this year. So they are not playing in Toronto this year because the Canadian government did not grant them permission to travel in and out of the country between Canada and the United States. So they're actually playing in Tampa. So they play down over at Amalie Arena. And I remember, I believe they were actually staying at one of the hotels um, right next to the arena for a couple of weeks while they were trying to get some living arrangements set up during the transition coming down to Tampa. With that said, though, they just haven't performed well. Um, I guess one of the biggest things that I've seen from them where they've really struggled is they're just giving up a lot of points, and they're just not playing good defensive basketball. So just to kind of give you an example, like they played against the Kings the other day. Now the Kings are actually not that bad this year because De'Aaron Fox has been going off this year, but they're giving up over 110 plus a game in most of these losses. Just to kind of pull up some of these losses that they've had, like in the last month or so. So they played like I said, they played against the Kings. They gave up 126 in a loss. They played the Bucks before then. They gave up 115. They played the Pacers before then. They almost gave up 130 to the Pacers, and they gave up 100 over 110 points to the Heat, and just about I want to say maybe a week and a half ago to the Heat. And the thing is, like, you got to expect more from not only them on the defensive side of the ball, but you got to expect more from Fred VanVleet. He got that huge contract extension just about a year ago. He hasn't been living up to that contract. Pascal Siakam has really been struggling this year. Um, Kyle Lowry still is, a mid-level to an average level point guard. You just need a little more effort from these guys, and they're just not getting it done. I originally had the Raptors as like a top five, top six seed in the Eastern Conference going into this year, and they have just they've really underwhelmed me so far this year. Now, granted, we're only about a quarter of the way through the season, so they definitely have more than enough time to turn things around. And trust me, I do believe in Nick Nurse. I do believe that he is a really competent coach. He's gotten this team to a finals championship before. And to a certain extent, I do believe that this team has overachieved ever since Kawhi has left. I think this year they're definitely having some, I wouldn't say growing pains, for example, but I would just say that they're struggling. They just haven't found really any sort of consistent rhythm as far as getting W's or just wins in the win column. But like I said, they still got a lot of time to figure this out. They still have about, I believe, 45 to 50 games left this season. So I'll say this: if they don't start turning it around within the next month or so, then I would really be concerned for them long term. That's just kind of how I see it.
I mean, you kind of took all the words right out of my mouth, but the only counterpoint I will say, if you guys haven't figured it out, I was kind of leading towards the Raptors. Uh, the Raptors were just dominating basketball ever since Nurse got to the team. I mean, obviously, we all know they were a perennial all-star team, even in the DeMar DeRozan days, but it really took that Kawhi Leonard acquisition to go and put them over the top and, lead them to the promised land, so to speak, with their victory over the Warriors. And, like Kyle said, once Kawhi left, I mean, everybody kind of thought that the Raptors would be written off. They didn't think that they would be back or they would be anywhere near what they were when they were a finals, or should I say, an NBA championship team. And they went out and they took the Celtics last year all the way to what, 7 games? And they went all the way to the semifinals in the bubble. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the Raptors found ways to stay relevant. They kept winning basketball games. They kept dominating teams that they needed to. But this year, the big difference to me is, like you said, the defensive liabilities. But to me, I look at that as, look, Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, their main rim protectors are gone.
Yeah.
They signed Alex Lynn. They cut him. They waived him or whatever that was, I believe, like what, last week or 2 weeks ago. So, I
Yeah.
mean, they haven't found a solid replacement big this season. And I feel like that is a huge contributor to the fact that they're just allowing an absolute astronomical amount of points. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not, giving up Brooklyn numbers, but they are flirting with that line, but they just don't have the offensive firepower to go about competing like a Brooklyn Nets team. If they were to give up that many points, they could put up that many, if not more, themselves. And as Kyle stated, the offensive struggles of Van Fleet and Siakam and the rest of the supporting cast behind them just they aren't really doing much to give Nick Nurse an easy way out, or should I say, not an easy way out, but an easier job. So the team as a whole is struggling on both ends of the floor, and I think it starts on the defensive end, and they are for sure the biggest disappointment for the both of us in the Eastern Conference.